Hello and welcome back to our study of the ABCs of a Godly Heart by Cassandra Martin. Last time we looked at the letter Q in the word quick to see how God is quick to move in our lives. Today we're going to look at our response to that, which is the word quiet. The word quiet is an adjective. It means peaceful, still, at rest. Our key verse is Psalm 46 verse 10, which says, "Be still and know that I am God." This Hebrew word for be still is the word rapha. And two interesting times that it is used is at the crossing of the Red Sea in Exodus 14 verse 14, when God tells the people to be still and he will fight for them. Another time it's used is in 1 Kings chapter 22, verse 3, when the king of Israel comes to Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, and asks him to help him fight another army to take over the land. And Jehoshaphat says, "First, I'm going to be still and seek the counsel of the Lord."
In Lewis Carroll's Upside Down Tale Through the Looking Glass, the Red Queen tells Alice, "Now here you see, it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that." The Red Queen's words seem to hit on the pace of most of our lives, right? We run and don't ever seem to get where we need to go or get what needs to get done. We are busy, tired, stressed, and worn out. It takes all of our energy to keep up with just the basics, right? Handling anything else will require us to run twice as fast as we do now. In Mark 6, verses 30 through 31, the apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught. Then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." I love how God knows exactly what we need. Earlier in Mark, we see that Jesus has sent out the 12 to preach with instructions and authority over impure spirits. So when they come to Jesus in Mark 6, verse 30, he knew they were exhausted. So he invites the disciples to come with him just by themselves to a quiet place to rest. That invitation is for us too. Are you exhausted? I know at times we can all relate to the feeling the disciples had of just being overtaxed. One of the things that seems to have gotten lost in our multitasking, media-driven, too much to do lives is the ability to be quiet. God knows what we need. He knows unless we learn how important it is to be deliberately quiet before him, we will not be able to grow in our relationship with him. What's so good about being quiet before God? Well, quietness is largely about releasing control. In quietness, we stop. It's that simple and it's that difficult. When we are busy, we maintain this illusion that we are in charge of our time and schedules. We've got a plan and things are going to get done and marked off the checklist. Well, quietness can change that perspective. It reminds us that we are small, deeply loved pieces of God's extraordinary plan. In stillness, we see again that it is God's power and his purpose that we need to focus on. Getting that straight helps us navigate each day with that amazing eternal perspective we also want to have.
Today I want us to look at a super short parable. It is in Matthew chapter 13, verse 33. And it says, "He," who is Jesus, "told them still another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed into about 60 pounds of flour until it worked all through the dough." This parable is a parable of transformation and about the power of the kingdom. Small amounts of yeast worked into huge mounds of dough, of flour, utterly change the consistency to be a brand new product. Separately, they don't taste good. and they don't really do anything. But together, the yeast and the flour are an emptiness-filling substance, a delicious, life-giving product with a very distinct aroma and character. It is a picture of the transformation Jesus wants to work in your life as a child of God. This parable reveals how the power of the kingdom, how it's activated in our lives. Now, I love to bake. I usually am a cookie baker, but I have baked many batches of cinnamon rolls and homemade pizza dough. And I know that the yeast is the hardest part for me. I'm always a nervous wreck if I have the water too hot or if I let it set long enough. Did it actually double in size? And it's a whole entire process that you have to go through when baking with the yeast. It has to be done in stages. And if you don't take each stage properly, you're going to have a mess on your hands. The transformation will not take place without each stage. So we gather up our ingredients, and step 1 is to proof the yeast. This is the part that always makes me nervous. So you mix the yeast with a little water, a little sugar, and you leave it alone. You walk away and you let it rest. Because within that resting, that is when the yeast is activated. That's when it can start doing its job. Now, after the yeast has grown, you can add the other ingredients, the flour, the salt, the whatever thing you're making. And you stir and you knead and you work the dough until it's all incorporated, and then you let it rest. And this time you cover the bowl and you walk away for a long time, hours. You let this dough rise until it doubles in size, until it's completely changed into a new product. Once you take all of these steps, you have got the perfect dough ball, and you let that guy rest. It can't be what you want it to be unless it rests. You are absolutely required to leave it alone. Now, you've got to come back to it and beat it down and then let it rise again. All 3 of these rest periods are essential for the making of your dough. Now, this is where we need to start thinking about our lives. This is a cycle, and this parable is teaching us about ourselves, about the rhythm that our heart needs to be in to follow. If we want the kingdom of heaven to truly work in our lives, you have to follow the cycle of work, rest, work, rest, work, rest. Sometimes the work is long and the rest is short. Sometimes the work is short and the rest is long. It just depends on what you need at that stage of your cycle. However, rest is always essential for transformation and to be able to produce the food and the pleasing aroma to God. The parable of the yeast teaches us an unexpected truth. We must invest in periods of quiet if we really want the full power of God's transformation to make an impact on our lives. Work is good and important, but quiet and rest are absolutely necessary if we're going to be the people that God calls us to be. The quiet that our souls require is not vegging out in front of the TV. It's not even enjoying a cup of coffee with a friend. That kind of quiet is fine, but the quiet that God wants, it's a resolution in your heart to purposefully and deliberately move into the presence of God. It's a time to just be with God. It's not even singing or praying or reading the Bible. It is quiet before God, listening for Him. The idea of being alone with God might be a little awkward at first. Many, including me, have bought into the theory that we have to be busy. We have to be productive in order to be worthy and to be able to fulfill whatever destiny we have. Well, the truth of the yeast, it's a big however. It shows us that we will never be able to do the things that God dreams for us if we are not quiet and if we do not rest. Quietness is a spiritual discipline that takes practice and time. It's not hard. You just have to stop and be still. Quiet your thoughts, set aside your to-do list, and focus on the presence of God. Just like with the yeast, start small. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and several times a day, work yourself up to where you have longer periods of quietness before God. I hope this week you'll take the challenge to be quiet before God. Even if it's a little awkward at first, it will be a blessing to you in the end.
We are going to be looking at Psalm 131, and as I read it, let's listen to what it teaches us about being quiet before the Lord. My heart is not proud, Lord. My eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me, but I have calmed and quieted myself. I am like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child, I am content. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, both now and forevermore. When I read that, the contentment of the psalmist was so evident. Being quiet before the Lord can bring that to us. The picture of a child and a mother and the closeness that comes with that quiet time together. When we still our souls and quiet our hearts before God, we let God take the weight of the world off our shoulders, and we can just be with Him. So I hope we all take some time to be quiet this week, to stop trying to juggle everything ourselves. Be still before God and let that peace and contentment fill you up. Next week, we are going to be looking at the letter R. We will study the words rock and remember. We hope you'll join us then.